Well, I have a story to tell about a remarkable evening that happened 50 years ago, right here at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. I was 15 years old, working as a ticket taker in the Midway, and it was just a remarkable evening that happened that evening. It just so happened I was having to work a lot that year because my father had recently become unemployed, an unfortunate circumstance where he had sold some rotten cantaloupe to a guy named Richard Lugar, who it turned out was the mayor of Indianapolis, unbeknownst to him. And my mother was having to make ends meet by mending mittens for Mennonites, and long, difficult story. But anyway, I was working a lot, and that day was a remarkable day because it was very hot. I was working, taking tickets at a booth that had the actual car that Bonnie and Clyde were killed in. So it was filled with bullet holes, and I had actually ascertained that it was the actual car that they were killed in because they had pictures up on the side of the wall, and I matched the bullet holes from the picture with the bullet holes in the car. You may not be aware, but Bonnie actually wasn't killed during that whole event. She was seriously injured, but she changed her identity, and she became a leading advocate for gun control in the state of Indiana. Anyway, I diverge, and I never diverge. So on with the story here. At that evening, my friend and I, a fellow ticket taker, were invited to an evening performance that the carnival workers were putting on as a benefit for the carnival workers. That's very unusual for someone who isn't a carnival worker to come, but I guess we were extraordinary and we were invited. So we came to the carnival, to this benefit, which was kind of probably on this side of the fairgrounds. I don't remember. This was 50 years ago. But it was late at night, and I remember we were walking through an area that there was a big pool, a big pond, and as we looked down, we saw that there was this giant catfish in this pond. And it was a huge thing. It had to be 6 feet long. It had to be, I don't know, 250, 300 pounds. And as we were staring down at it, we realized this was the ugliest fish in the world. And it also had huge whiskers and a big, huge mouth. Well, my friend saw that I was leaning over the edge, and he knocked me over right on top of the catfish. I was terrified. The catfish was terrified. I grabbed the first thing I could grab onto, which was the catfish's whiskers, and proceeded to hold onto the catfish as it accelerated across the pool. Well, my heart was way up in my chest, but I discovered that I could actually kind of control the catfish by pulling on its whiskers a little bit and slow it down. And I went from terror to actual little bit of joy to discovering that this was kind of fun. I could ride this catfish around this pool. Well, the catfish got tired out and actually pulled up right to where I had gotten in and stopped, just like a taxi driver would let go of its fare. I hopped up and went up to my friend, and we walked over to where the tent was set up now, and this actual benefit performance was going on. Well, the first performance of the night featured two magicians. There was a husband and wife team. And the magician, the husband, had a long pipe. He filled it with tobacco, took a giant puff, and he blew the smoke right out of his wife's ears, which was pretty incredible because she was sitting across the stage. The crowd went wild. It was pretty amazing. The next act, though, topped that. It was a giant elephant. Back in the day, there were lions and tigers and elephants out here. It's really tame for what it used to be. But this was actually a Brazilian elephant. You guys may not know there are Brazilian elephants, but there are. It came out dancing the mango and juggled 3 cantaloupes on its hind legs while standing on its forelegs. The crowd went wild again. But my favorite act was the next act, which is a tightrope walker, which came out, walked across the tightrope, and in the middle of the tightrope, stopped, sat down, pulled out a piano, and sang a marvelous rendition of Jay-Z and Alicia Keys' Empire State of Mind. It blew us all away. We couldn't believe it. We kind of wondered why they chose something like that. We discovered later they'd been to Manhattan and played at the New York State Fair, hence that tie-in there, which actually reminds me that I actually had been to Manhattan just actually a month ago and jumped off the top of the Empire State Building and went 1,250 feet down to the floor and landed safely on the streets below. But I diverge, and I never diverge. So from there, the final act was an incredible act that featured 2 people you may have heard of, Elvis Presley and Bob Dylan, and they were singing the remarkable song, Don't Think Twice, It's Now or Never. The crowd went wild at the end of that, too. Well, at the end of the performance, I went home. I walked home quite happy, quite grateful for the evening that I'd had at the Indiana State Fair. And, when I think of it now, when I think of the word grateful, I don't know if you know that the Grateful Dead actually performed at the first Indiana State Fair opening in 1892. But I diverge, and I never diverge. So thank you very much.